Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Jack was there, on the couch, with the remote control in his hand, distracted by the program playing on TV, when the sound of the doorbell interrupted the silence of the house. For a brief moment, he thought about ignoring it, pretending it wasn't for him, but there was something about the persistence that made him get up and head to the door. When he opened it, the impact was immediate. Standing before him was Megan. She looked different, worn out, as if time had taken its toll. Her eyes revealed sleepless nights and a whirlwind of emotions. Without saying a word, she stared at Jack, her expression mixing regret and desperation. She asked to come in, her voice trembling, almost as if seeking refuge. Jack took a deep breath. It was clear that this was the last thing he wanted, but still, for some reason he couldn't explain, he gave in. He stepped aside and let her in. Megan crossed the threshold with her head down, as if carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Jack closed the door, still unable to believe she was there, in front of him, after everything. He went to the kitchen, grabbed a glass, and filled it with water, just to keep his hands busy and push away the tension starting to build in the air. As he poured the water, memories surfaced like a blow, bringing back all the pain he had worked so hard to bury. It had all started simply, the way the biggest tragedies often do. Megan casually mentioned that she had been invited to a party with her co-workers. She brought up Amanda, the host, as if talking about any random colleague, but Jack knew exactly who she was. Amanda had always been involved in stories he preferred to stay away from. She was known for her attention-seeking ways, extravagant parties, and irresponsible behavior. Jack never trusted her and had made that clear from the start. He tried, with as much calm as possible, to explain his concerns to Megan. He openly expressed how he felt about the party, about those people, about how uncomfortable he was with the idea of her attending that event. Megan, however, reacted coldly, as if his words were just a minor annoyance. She downplayed everything, saying he was overreacting, that it was just an innocent gathering among colleagues. The argument didn't take long to escalate. Jack, already tired of feeling disrespected, got straight to the point. He looked her in the eyes and said, in a firm voice, that night would mark the end of their marriage if she walked out that door. There was no more room for conversation, no more patience left to deal with actions that broke the trust between them. He was clear. He said the marriage depended on that moment, on that choice. Megan, with a defiant look, didn't hesitate. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and left, as if his decision were just another insignificant comment. Jack remained frozen, not even moving a muscle. Everything inside him screamed, but he stayed silent, simply watching as the woman who had promised to walk beside him chose a different path, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. There, in that silent living room, their marriage was already dead. And still, seeing Megan back after all these years stirred something in his chest. As he handed her the glass of water, Jack kept his face calm, but inside, it was as if he were reliving every detail of that night that changed everything. The old pain seemed to mix with a bitter curiosity. After all, what did she want now? Why had she come back, after so much time, after everything that was said, after everything that was done? She held the glass with both hands, as if trying to shield herself from the cold that consumed her from within. Jack remained standing, staring at Megan, waiting for her to say why she was there. He didn't ask for explanations or pose questions. He simply waited, letting the silence weigh on her. Megan, on the other hand, avoided looking directly at him, as if the words were stuck in her throat. Inside, Jack knew this meeting would only be another scar. It didn't matter what she had to say. Within him, there was already a certainty: some choices cannot be undone. And that door, which she had walked through one day, would never open the same way again. As Megan remained silent, her trembling hands gripping the glass of water, Jack continued observing her, showing no urgency to hear what she had to say. He offered no comfort, nor did he open the space for a casual conversation. He simply waited, with the same calm gaze of someone who already knew how this story ended. Megan hesitated, but Jack didn't care how long it would take her. Inside him, the memories of that night were still intact, as vivid as the moment they happened. After she left for the party, Jack stayed alone, trying to convince himself that this argument was just another among many. He thought that maybe she'd change her mind once she arrived and realized that this choice wasn't worth it. He fooled himself into believing he could distract himself. He tried to watch the game on TV, but he couldn't focus. The unease grew, like a silent warning that something far worse was coming. Hours passed. It was late when Jack's phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from Kyle, an old friend, someone who knew Megan and was also at the party. Jack had no idea what he was about to see. When he opened the message, he found a video. Kyle, without saying a single word, had sent the recording without any warning. Out of pure impulse, Jack pressed play. In the first few seconds, the images showed loud music and flashing lights at the party. People laughed, danced, and drank. Then, suddenly, the camera focused on a scene Jack would never forget. Megan was there, in the middle of the room, clearly out of control, her hair messy and her gaze lost. She laughed loudly while dancing on the laps of two men, alternating between them as if enjoying the situation. The colleagues around encouraged the scene, cheering her on with shouts and applause. Every second of that video was like a stab to Jack's chest. He watched until the end, without blinking, without taking a deep breath, without interrupting. When the recording ended, he continued staring at the screen, as if trying to process what he had just seen. The images replayed in his mind, like a torturous cycle that refused to stop. At that moment, something inside him broke definitively. Jack stood up, went to the bedroom, and grabbed a suitcase. Without any rush, he began packing his clothes, his belongings, everything he needed to leave without looking back. The decision was made. He knew there was no turning back. He went to the office, accessed the bank accounts, and withdrew all the money that was there. Every penny was transferred to a new account, opened days earlier when the first signs of the marriage falling apart began to show. It was a cold and calculated move, but necessary. Jack knew he would need stability to start over. In silence, he reviewed everything he had gathered, stored the documents and cards, then wrote a simple, straightforward note, leaving no room for interpretation. "Don't look for me anymore." Those were the only words he left on the table, along with the wedding ring, which he removed from his finger without hesitation. He closed the door and left. The early morning felt empty, but Jack didn't think about a destination. He just drove, his heart numb and his mind focused on a single certainty: that chapter was closed. No tears fell, no screams were uttered, no doubts accompanied him. Everything felt clean and resolved. Jack disappeared. He left behind the city, friends, his old job, anything that could be a link to his previous life. Now, years later, Megan sat holding the glass of water as if trying to prevent the past from swallowing her whole again. Jack observed her, unhurried, with the serenity of someone who already knew every detail of this personal tragedy. She was still searching for the right words, but Jack knew that whatever excuse she had, what he saw in that video would never be forgotten. And that was all that mattered. Megan gripped the glass of water between her hands, as if it were the only thing keeping her from collapsing right there. She took a deep breath, looking at the liquid in the glass, avoiding Jack's gaze. Her voice came out low, dragged, heavy with shame and pain, as if each word weighed tons. She began by saying that she remembered that night as a blur. She said that when she arrived at the party, everything seemed normal. Her colleagues were chatting, laughing, and the music filled the room. Amanda greeted her with her usual fake charm, offering her a drink right at the entrance. Megan explained that it was the first and only drink she accepted that night. After that sip, everything started spinning. She described feeling her body grow heavy, her vision blurry, her mind confused, as if she had been ripped from her own consciousness. She didn't know exactly how long she had been there, but she said she completely lost control. She couldn't remember the hours that followed, nor the faces around her, nor the things she did. The only thing she recalled were distorted flashes, as if she were trapped in a nightmare where voices mixed and her body moved without any command. Megan recounted waking up the next day, disoriented, on Amanda's couch. Her clothes were disheveled, her head pounding, and a bitter taste in her mouth. She said it took her a few minutes to figure out where she was. Once she realized, panic set in. She rushed out of there, still trying to regain her senses. When she got home, she found everything empty. She called for Jack, searched the rooms, but there was no sign of him. She went to the table and saw the note. Just one short sentence, like a verdict: "Don't look for me anymore." She said the ground disappeared beneath her feet at that moment. She grabbed her phone and tried to call him, but his number was already out of service. She called mutual friends, family members, searched every possible corner, but it was as if Jack had vanished. Only with time, after the pain of rejection, did she begin to suspect that something far worse had happened at that party. She said she insisted on understanding how everything spiraled out of control, and after pressuring some people, she uncovered the cruel truth: Amanda and other colleagues had orchestrated it. They had slipped a substance into her drink to make her lose control. Megan recounted being in shock to learn that it was all premeditated, planned as a cruel joke. Furious, she said she gathered evidence, hired lawyers, and filed a lawsuit against Amanda and those involved. She described enduring months in court, hearing lies and trying to clear her name, until the truth finally came out and she won the case. She said she received a large settlement, but no amount of money could compensate for the real suffering. The hardest moment, according to her, wasn't the exposure, the trial, or the public humiliation. She said the worst moment of all was when she received a call from Jack's lawyer, informing her that the divorce was finalized. She said that at that moment, everything that remained of what they had built crumbled completely. Despite everything she went through, Megan said she needed to see him. That she needed to talk to him, look him in the eyes, and tell him the truth, even though she knew it might not make a difference anymore. That's why she hired a private detective. She said it was a long, difficult, and exhausting search that crossed state lines, consumed time and money, until she finally found him in that isolated town. She raised her gaze, her eyes teary, and concluded by saying that now she was here, in front of him, holding that glass of water as if it were the only anchor keeping her standing at that moment. As she remained motionless, the glass trembled subtly in her hands, a reflection of the storm still consuming her from within. Megan, with a choked voice, still tried to find some small opening through which she could reach his heart. She said that everything she did, every effort, every search, every penny spent, was driven by the guilt that had consumed her since that night and by the love she still carried in her heart. She said that during this time, she had never been able to move on, that she woke up every day with the memory of his face and the pain of losing him. She insisted that, if she were in his place, she might have judged the same way. She begged him to consider giving her at least a chance to listen to what her heart was screaming. But Jack observed her with the same serenity he had maintained since the start of the conversation. He didn't raise his voice, didn't show anger, nor did he display any emotion that might give her hope. When he responded, he made sure to speak clearly, leaving no room for doubt. He said that life shows signs before a tragedy, and it's up to each person to decide what to do with those signs. He explained that, for him, the real problem wasn't the substance in the drink, nor the setup at that party. What destroyed everything was the choice she made to ignore the value of their marriage and the respect that had existed between them. He said that the moment she decided to turn her back on him, despite all the words, all the pleas for attention, the fate of their marriage was sealed. Jack stated that some choices cost too much, and that love, no matter how strong, isn't enough to erase scars that run too deep. Megan had no more strength to keep insisting. Her gaze wandered, empty, like someone who finally understands the depth of the abyss she dug with her own hands. Without saying anything else, she stood up and walked to the door. She left, carrying the weight of the certainty that she had lost everything, with no gesture of hope left. Jack remained seated, unmoving, until he heard the sound of the door closing. With the same calmness of someone who had just closed an old chapter, he stood up and went to the hallway. He called Vanessa, who had been waiting silently in the next room during the entire conversation. She appeared calm, without questions, with the understanding of someone who knew this night would be the final point of a story that had gone on too long. They remained there, sitting on the couch, unhurried, as if time had slowed down inside that room. Vanessa, sitting beside Jack, simply rested her hand on his knee, a simple gesture but full of complicity. Neither of them seemed in any hurry to get up. Her presence was calm, secure, as if she understood every detail of the situation without needing explanations. Jack broke the silence with a short phrase, spoken with the same calmness he had maintained throughout the night. He said that some wounds never disappear, no matter how much time passes or how many new stories begin. He explained that these marks aren't there to torture but to teach. He affirmed that everyone needs to learn that disrespecting someone's love and loyalty comes at too high a price, and that there isn't always a second chance to fix what was destroyed. Vanessa listened in silence, without interrupting, without questioning. The two of them stayed there, side by side, saying nothing more, simply sharing the certainty that this was truly the closing of a chapter that had weighed heavily on Jack's shoulders for so long. As he looked ahead, his gaze steady and calm, Jack knew that, finally, it was time to leave everything behind. Sitting next to someone who respected his history and his heart, he was fully aware that the last page had been turned. And there was nothing more to be said. Only peace. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.